Number 9. You're not a morning person. And that's not laziness, it's biology. You wake up groggy, hit snooze 5 times, and need 3 coffees just to look human. You've been called lazy, undisciplined, even broken. But here's the truth. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's following ancient programming. You're not a failure. You're a chronotype outlier in a world built for early birds. Scientists at the University of Oxford found that the average human circadian rhythm isn't 24 hours, it's 24 hours and 11 minutes. But yours? If you're a night owl, your internal clock might be closer to 24 hours and 30 minutes. That means every single day, your body is playing catch-up with a schedule. It was never meant to follow, and it gets worse. A 2018 study in the Lancet Psychiatry analyzed 430,000 people and found that night owls have a 10% higher risk of premature death, not because of bad habits, but because society forces them into a rhythm that's biologically hostile. Your body thinks it's 6 a.m. when the clock says 8. That's like making someone run a marathon while jet-lagged. Even your genes are working against you. The PAR3 gene has 2 variants, one for early risers, one for night people. If you have the long version, you're more alert at night, slower to wake, and more prone to depression and diabetes. Not because you lack willpower, but because your body chemistry is literally out of sync with the 9-to-5 world. So the next time someone says, just go to bed earlier, tell them, I can't. My DNA said no. Number 8. You think you're good at multitasking, but you're actually a cognitive fraud. You're texting, watching TV, and answering emails while listening to your partner talk about their day. You call it multitasking. Neuroscience calls it continuous partial attention, and it's destroying your brain. Stanford researchers tested heavy multitaskers and found something shocking. They were worse at filtering out irrelevant information, worse at switching between tasks, and had lower memory recall than people who focus on one thing at a time. In other words, the people who think they're best at multitasking are actually the worst. Why? Because your brain doesn't multitask. It switches tasks, and every switch costs you up to 40% of your productivity, according to the American Psychological Association. It's like slamming your mental gears into reverse every time you check your phone. And here's the real kicker. A 2020 study in Nature found that just seeing your phone on the table, even if it's off, reduces your cognitive capacity by the equivalent of 10 IQ points. That's the same drop as pulling an all-nighter. So when you brag about juggling 5 things at once, what you're really doing is failing at all 5. Your brain isn't a supercomputer. It's a single-threaded processor pretending to be a quantum machine. And the worst part, you don't even realize it. Your brain lies to you, creating the illusion of efficiency. It's not multitasking. It's self-deception with Wi-Fi. Number 7, you believe in free will. But your brain decided that before you did. You chose your job. You picked your partner. You decided to watch this video. Right? Wrong. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet ran a famous experiment in the 1980s where he asked people to flick their wrist whenever they felt like it. He measured their brain activity and found something terrifying. The brain's motor cortex lit up half a second before the person reported making the decision. That means your brain decided to move your hand before you were consciously aware of the choice. More recent fMRI studies at the Max Planck Institute took it further. They could predict a person's decision up to 7 seconds before they were aware of it, just by watching patterns in the prefrontal cortex. In other words, your sense of "I chose this" is a retrospective story your brain tells you to make life feel coherent. It's not free will. It's post hoc rationalization. Philosopher Sam Harris put it best. You can do what you decide to do, but you cannot decide what you will decide to do. So when you say, I chose this career, the truth is your genes, environment, subconscious, biases, and neural noise made that choice long before you showed up. You're not the author of your life. You're the narrator reading a script you didn't write. And if that doesn't keep you up at night, nothing will. Number 6. You think. You're in control of your emotions, but your gut is calling the shots. You're angry at your boss. You're sad after a breakup. You're anxious before a presentation. You assume these feelings come from your brain. But what if I told you your gut is secretly running the show? Your digestive system contains over 100 million neurons, more than your spinal cord. It's called the enteric nervous system, and scientists now refer to it as the second brain. Even crazier? About 90% of your serotonin, the so-called happy chemical, is produced in your gut, not your brain. Same goes for 50% of your dopamine. And your gut bugs? They're not just digesting food. They're manipulating your mind. A 2019 study in Nature Microbiology found that people with depression had significantly lower levels of Coprococcus and Dialister, two types of gut bacteria linked to dopamine production. When researchers transplanted gut microbes from depressed humans into mice, the mice became anxious and withdrawn. Your microbiome doesn't just affect mood, it can alter personality. In one experiment, timid mice became bold after receiving gut bacteria from adventurous mice. So when you say, "I'm just in a bad mood," it might not be your thoughts causing it. It could be the trillions of microbes in your intestines sending chemical signals to your brain saying, "Today, we hate everyone." You're not emotionally unstable. You're microbiologically compromised, and no amount of deep breathing fixes a bad gut. Number 5. You think you're seeing reality, but your brain is faking it. You open your eyes, the world appears, you assume you're seeing what's really there. But your brain isn't a camera. It's a predictive engine that constructs reality based on assumptions. And it's wrong more often than you think. Take your blind spot. Right now, each of your eyes has a hole in your vision, where the optic nerve exits the retina. You should see a black void in each eye, but you don't. Why? Because your brain fills in the gap with a best guess. It's not showing you reality. It's painting over a missing piece. Even worse, your eyes don't see a continuous image. They make rapid movements called saccades, like a shaky phone camera. During each saccade, you're technically blind for milliseconds. But your brain edits it out. You don't experience the blur or the blackout. It stitches the frames together into a smooth movie. You're not seeing the world. You're watching a rendered simulation created by your brain. And sometimes the simulation glitches, like in the McGurk effect, where what you see changes what you hear. Play a video of someone saying "ba," but dub it with "fa," and your brain will swear they said "da." Vision overrides sound. Or the rubber hand illusion. If you hide someone's real hand and stroke a fake one in front of them, their brain starts believing the fake hand is theirs. Some people even flinch when it's threatened. Your senses aren't input devices. They're suggestions. Your brain takes those suggestions and builds a story. And most of the time, you don't even know the story is fictional. You're not perceiving reality. You're living inside a controlled hallucination that's just stable enough not to freak you out. Number 4. You think you're making memories, but you're just editing Wikipedia. You remember your first kiss, your graduation, a childhood birthday. You assume these memories are recordings, like video files stored in your brain. But neuroscientists have a different word for it: fiction. Every time you recall a memory, your brain doesn't just play it back. It reconstructs it. And every reconstruction is a chance for error. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a leading memory researcher, proved this in the 1990s. She showed people fake childhood photos, like riding in a hot air balloon, and after a few sessions, 70% of participants remembered the event in vivid detail, even though it never happened. Your memories aren't files. They're stories. And like any story, they change with each telling. Even more disturbing, Your brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined events. The same neural pathways fire whether you're remembering something or just picturing it. That's why repeated visualization can create false memories. And trauma? It doesn't preserve memories. It distorts them. Soldiers, abuse survivors, and accident victims often have fragmented, contradictory recollections. The brain prioritizes emotional truth over factual accuracy. So when you say, "I remember it like it was yesterday," what you're really saying is, "I've told myself this story so many times, I've forgotten which parts were real." You're not a reliable narrator of your own life. You're a novelist with a bad editor. Number 3, you think you're an individual, but you're a superorganism. You look in the mirror and see you. One person, one body, one identity. But here's the truth. You are outnumbered. For every human cell in your body, there are 1.3 bacterial cells. That means you're only 43% human, at best. The rest? Microbes. Trillions of them. Mostly in your gut, but also on your skin, in your mouth, up your nose. And they're not just hitchhikers. They're co-pilots. Your microbiome helps digest food, train your immune system, and even produce neurotransmitters. Some scientists argue that without gut bacteria, you wouldn't be able to think clearly or feel emotions at all. But here's where it gets existential. Some of your DNA isn't yours. About 8% of human DNA comes from ancient viruses that infected our ancestors millions of years ago. These viral fragments, called endogenous retroviruses, are baked into your genome. Some of them help form the placenta during pregnancy. You literally owe your existence to a virus. And then there's the fetal microchimerism phenomenon. If you're a woman who's been pregnant, you may still carry your child's cells in your brain, heart, and liver, sometimes for decades. Some mothers even have male DNA in their brains from sons they miscarried or aborted. So when you say "I," who are you really referring to? The human cells? The bacteria? The viral DNA? The ghost cells of a child you never raised? You're not an individual. You're a walking ecosystem, a temporary alliance of species that hasn't decided whether it's at war or in symbiosis. Number 2. You think you're awake, but you're probably sleepwalking through life. You're sitting there watching this video, feeling alert. You assume you're fully conscious, but Harvard researchers estimate that the average person spends 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing. You're not present. You're mentally elsewhere, daydreaming, worrying, replaying arguments. And that's not mindfulness. That's cognitive autopilot. Neurologically, your brain has two main networks, the default mode network, active when you're lost in thought, and the task positive network, active when you're focused. Most people flip between them constantly, but never fully engage either. You eat without tasting. You walk without feeling your feet. You talk without listening. You're not meditating. You're mentally absent. And get this. A 2021 study in sleep found that people who report mind blanking, where they're not thinking anything, spend up to 10% of their day in a state of zero conscious content. Not asleep, not dreaming, just off. So when you say, "I'm awake," you might actually be in a low-grade dissociative state, a kind of waking coma. You're not living your life. You're skipping it. Number 1, you think you're the same person over time, but you're a complete replacement. You look at childhood photos and think, "That's me." But biologically, that kid is dead. Every 7 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. Your skin, your blood, your liver, all new. Even your bones rebuild themselves every decade. But it gets weirder. Your brain, the neurons in your cerebral cortex last a lifetime. But the atoms inside them are replaced every few weeks. The molecules that make up you are constantly being swapped out. So if none of your cells are the same, and even the atoms in your brain are recycled, what makes you you? Philosophers call this the ship of Theseus paradox. If you replace every part of a ship, is it still the same ship? And neuroscience has no answer. Because here's the final twist. You are not a thing. You are a pattern, a temporary arrangement of matter and energy that persists long enough to believe it's continuous. You're not a person. You're a process, like a flame that moves from candle to candle, never the same, always burning. So when you say, "I've always been this way," the truth is, you haven't. The body, the brain, the cells, the atoms, all replaced. The only thing that remains is the story you keep telling about who you are. And that story, it's the weirdest thing of all. That's it. These aren't flaws. They're features of being human. Bizarre, unpredictable, and way stranger than fiction. If you made it this far, you're probably questioning everything. Good. Because the moment you stop assuming you're normal is the moment you start understanding how weird and wonderful being alive really is. Smash that like button if your brain feels violated. Subscribe for more reality checks. And next time you think, you're just being human. Remember, normal is the rarest thing of all.